Welcome to LatinCast, episode number 6. I'm so excited. We just wrapped up episode number 5. So this is actually the second episode in English, and we have nonetheless
Morris Morrison
here with us, and we're going straight into the questions. We already introduced. You got to go back to episode 5 to go ahead and listen to the things that he said. You cannot miss that. But if you're ready to go, here we go. Morris, explain to us now. I have a big question, and I want to know what the transition was from your corporate world into what you do now. Explain to us what was going on through your mind.
You know, I knew that I was called to be a speaker. I told you on the first episode at 17, I knew I was going to speak, write books, and preach, speech, motivate, encourage, all of that stuff. But I went to college and got my undergrad in psychology, got my master's degree in business, and I wanted to get a job so I can start making some money so I can start growing my business on the side. Go ahead, say it. Say on the side.
On the side.
Say it, Rob. Say on the side. And sometimes that's how God will get our attention, because he knows that if he says, hey, this is going to be your main entree, this is going to be the main course, you'll be like, no, it's not. But if he says, this is just going to be on the side, then God knows you. He knows you'll dip your toe in it. And you'll experiment it with a little bit. You'll trust it a little bit. And for me, I went and worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. My last job was with Pfizer pharmaceutical company, largest pharmaceutical company in the world. And when I took the job, I knew that God had been knocking on my door saying, Morris, when are you going to trust me with this gift to speak and to preach and to write books? You are a motivator. Are you going to trust me? Are you going to trust what the world is showing you? So when I took my job with Pfizer in March of 2008, I gave myself a 3-year expiration date. I said by March 31st, 2011, I was not allowed to be working for anyone else again. And I gave myself an expiration date. We open our refrigerators every day. For those of y'all who drink milk, you pull the milk out, and if you see that it's expired, you look at the date. Some of y'all crazy, y'all drink it anyway, right? Some of y'all open the cap and you'll smell it, and you'll say, oh, that doesn't smell good. But what I smelled in my life is I smelled a lot of fear, and I smelled a lot of uncertainty. And even though I'm a naturally confident person, I still don't have a father. I didn't have a mom and dad. When you do things on your own, there's just kind of like a glitch in your software. I believe that when Jesus died for us, he died to cover our sins. But I also believe outside of our sins and our repentance, even though we're washed clean and we're forgiven, we still have glitches. Say it. Say glitches.
Yeah, glitches.
We still have some things that aren't quite right about us. Like everybody's got some things that aren't quite. And what I knew about me was that I'm a risk taker. And as an entrepreneur, that's not a glitch. That is a gift. And so I just started to see my glitches and my gifts a lot different. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't have a glitch. I have a gift. I've been cutting my own hair since I was a kid because I got curly hair. Nobody knew how to cut it. I told y'all that before. So I started making a lot of money cutting hair when I was young because I cut my hair and I got good. And people, they wanted me to cut their hair. And of course, at first they were like, Morris, I want you to cut my hair. And I was like, no. And they were like, no, Morris, I'm going to pay you to cut my hair. And I was like, yes.
I just changed my mind.
Yeah, man, changed my mind real fast, right? But I also, I was a landscaper and I cut grass. I trimmed hedges. I worked yards. And then
you just did everything.
And you had to, I was on my own.
Yeah.
So I was a hustler. From the time I was 8 or 9, my first job actually, when I was 7, I would carry a black garbage bag around and I would pick up cans throughout our town. Somebody told me that over there at the edge of town was a big building that if you took recycled aluminum cans, you bring in a bag and they give you money. And I was thinking what? You mean free cans that are already on the ground? All I have to do is pick them up and take them to the recycling center and they'll weigh it and I can get money based on the weight of my cans. Okay, so I had
7 years old.
Yeah, 7 years old. Now I had an integrity problem because I would take some of the cans and put a rock inside of them, so they make them go heavier. And they did it by weight. Right? But I was recycling and I started making money, and I did that for many years. I started cutting hair, I cut grass, and in the wintertime, I shoveled snow. I was never afraid of working. I was always very enterprising, very entrepreneurial. Those things made sense to me. So when I had a 6-figure, big-time money-making job with Pfizer, I was making a lot of money, and I gave myself an expiration date because God had already showed me that not only did I have a skills for entrepreneurship, but I had never in my life let go of something that God told me to let go when he didn't put something better in my hand. You already know what happened earlier. He revealed my purpose to speak when I let go of an identity and idolatry called basketball, and he put my purpose in my hand. The second thing that I did at age 23, 24, I had a girl that I was dating who was a good person. What's up, Jody Lambert? How you doing? What's up, Jody? She wasn't the person for me. You know how I know? Because that's not who the person I married. She's not the person I married. And it was a tough relationship between Jody and I. And I felt like God saying, Morris, you have to let go of that. I've got something for you. And then I started dating my wife, Lisa, just after that. And now when I look at my daughter and I look at my wife and I look at my family, I cannot imagine building a life without anyone. So watch this. Step one, I let go of basketball. He gave me my purpose. Step two, I let go of who I thought was the right girl, but it was the wrong girl for me, and God put the right girl in my life. Step three, I let go of my career with Pfizer, and then I walked right into a very, very fast-growing career that God had waiting for me. Both of those required me to have the faith to let go of what I was comfortable with. And for the people listening right now, I don't care if you're a kid, I don't care if you're an adult, if you're an athlete, if you're a pastor, if you feel like you're supposed to be growing and getting to the next level in what you're doing, the question isn't, how do I get to the next level? The question is easier. What should you be letting go of right now? It could be a person. It could be a relationship. It could be a bad habit, right? A lot of those things are just covering up their next level.
So true, man. I can relate to that. I can understand what is being able to, release. There are things that God reminds me of the story of Abraham. When God's like, he never intended to kill Isaac.
That's right.
It was never God's goal to take it away, but it was God's goal to really see Abraham completely involuntarily, say, hey,
where's
God,
your heart?
I surrender.
Surrender
Whatever
his heart.
you ask, whatever I have that's so important to me, I'll give it to you in a way that I know for a fact that you're going to put something so much better in my hands. So I can understand that, but I'll tell you, it's not easy. The process is not easy.
Culture doesn't make it easy.
That's right.
If we didn't have culture and all these outside influences, and we had Jesus had a very simple leadership model. He did two things. He spent time ministering to people, and then he was in the wilderness with God. He would go back and spend time with people. He'd go back to the wilderness with God. Jesus only really did two things. He had simplicity. That's why he was one with the Father, and Jesus was very clear on what he was supposed to do. Okay, we're not called to be Jesus. We're not called to die for the sins of the world, but we are created for a purpose. And so all of these people walking around who are miserable and unhappy, I believe it's because they have a hole in their heart that only God can fill. And they're so connected to social media and technology and their phones, and they're connected to these expectations of other people that people today never spend time alone. If you're never alone and you're never by yourself, by the way, when I was collecting cans, who was with me? I was alone, all right? When I was cutting grass, landscaping, who was with me? I was alone. When I was practicing basketball, the amount of hours I put in on a basketball court shooting, who was with me? I was by myself. See, my thing for kids and adults today is, what are you doing that's allowing you to be isolated, to have solitude? Because that's only going to be the place that you find your greatness and your next calling. You can't do that in a crowd.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. How did you realize the signal so clear for you?
That's the thing, Rob.
Point.
At the time, I didn't realize that it was clear. But it's now looking back that I realized I was alone, building skills, being faithful, doing whatever God called me to do. Remember what I said about David?
That's
David's
right.
story, he didn't just kill Goliath. David had all of these acts of obedience along the way through his childhood and teenage years that led to Goliath, okay? I didn't end up, listen, the $1 Million Roundtable just ranked me out of Dubai, New Zealand, and Bangkok, Thailand as the #1 speaker in the world out of their top 350 speakers. And when they called me, he asked me a question. He said, how did you achieve this without being on social media? Like, you hardly ever use social media. And I have all these accounts with thousands of followers, but even Instagram, I'm private. I got like less than 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I could care less because it's private. And you know why it's private? Because as soon as you click the link for public on Instagram, you get friended by people you don't want to be friends with, but you also get friended by AI bots that are not real. I'll give you an example. I had a pastor 2 years ago who's a great man, by the way. He never says anything controversial. He's a very loving guy. And one day he just said, hey guys, I love all people. He said, but I'm very concerned that our border in Mexico is open, and I'm finding out that in Mexico they're releasing the hardest criminals from the worst prisons, and they're releasing them at the border to walk into America. And then he said, I just have some questions about these criminals. Are we getting them help? Are they getting skills? Are they murderers? Are they rapists? Were they sex offenders? Like he said, I have questions about this because this is we have to be careful. That's all he said. And he did it in a much more loving way. And all day long, he got thousands of comments from people saying, this is amazing. I mean, he did it in a really tasteful way. He falls asleep with his wife, Jill, and he wakes up the next day, and he had even more thousands of people saying, you should die, you should kill yourself, you should whatever. And he realized that all of the negative comments were from people he never knew. And the more he researched to try to see who they were, a lot of them were not, they were fake. They were bots, B-O-T-S. So one of the reasons why I interact with social media on such an infrequent basis is because it's not real, G. What we're doing right now, this is real. Our Bible says where two or more are gathered. Ready?
That's right.
For the purposes of God, and we're gathered in his name, the Holy Spirit is in the midst. It's hard to have the Holy Spirit in the midst on social media. It's possible, I believe it, but it's very hard. The devil is running rampant on social media. I want people to listen to me right now. I'm not telling you social media is bad. I'm telling you that a hammer can either be used to build a house or a hammer can be used to beat someone's brains in. It depends on your intent for how you use that tool. You can use social media to do a lot of good things, but for most of you listening to this who really want to uncover your dreams, you're not uncovering your dreams because social media is distracting you from actually building your dreams and doing the work.
With that said, I have a quick question on, just want to spark your thoughts on what the social media looks like to young people. And if you could give an advice to young people, what would it be regarding social media?
So there's 3 types of young people using social media. The top one gets an A+ for me. It's the kid who opens it, they make a couple jokes, they answer their friends on the app, and then they put it down and they don't touch it for the rest of the day. They use it casually, they don't have any issues, right? That's the A+ student. They use social media doesn't use them. Okay. Now the student in the middle is the one who's dangerous. That's the one who uses social media. Their life is being influenced by social media, from how they speak, how they talk, the cool slang and the lingo, to how they dress, to even their conduct of how they respect or disrespect other people. They are being influenced on social media. And that's the F student. And then the third student is the one who's 9, 10, teenager, and they don't use it at all. And that's even rare. And so in my house, my daughters, they know that they're not getting a smartphone until they're adults. And I'm treating them like Silicon Valley executives. The executives who work for Google and Apple and ChatGPT, all these executives who run these companies, their kids do not have these apps on their phones. Why? Because the executives who run TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and all this, they know what we don't want to acknowledge, which is that they're addictive products that are okay, but they're not okay for the developing brain of a child. You ask me about kids, okay? My wife and I have this thing, right? I told my wife before we got married, Lisa, there will be no alcohol in our house once we have kids. I'm not a big drinker. She was raised, her family, they drink a little bit, right? She said, Morris, what's the big deal? She said, I hardly ever drink. I said, great. So you shouldn't care if there's no alcohol in the house then, right? And she said, really? She said, okay, no big deal. That's when we got married. A few years later, when the baby came, I said, hey, you remember what I said? So those couple bottles of wine over there, go ahead and finish those up. But after that, ask for me in my house, we shall serve the Lord, right? I have to lead in this. I don't joke around when it comes to alcohol and stuff. And then she's like, Morris, our child's a baby. She's an infant. I said, we practice the habit now. And plus, this is what we agreed to when we got married. Like, we'll serve God. Like, we don't need alcohol. She goes, Morris, we're not alcoholics. I said, I know. So we shouldn't care to get rid of it, right? And so that conversation has progressed all the way up until last year. and my wife, we got a new house here in Charleston, and we were hosting people. And Lisa said, Morris, I just feel bad. Like, we don't have any wine to give our guests or anything. And I said, yeah, but we got spritzer water, we got seltzer water, we got milk. I'll name like 12 things we had. She's like, nobody wants milk. I was like, they'll love the milk if I'll tell them to drink it, right? And I was telling my wife.
And if it's free.
Right?
Come on, they'll love it.
But watch this. Later that night, my wife and I had a conversation. She's like, Morris, like, isn't it a good idea for our girls to see us drink in a healthy way? And I said, well, let's unpack that. Do you think our daughters are going to have sex one day? She said, of course. They're going to be married. I said, that's right. Cool. So because we know they're going to have sex with their husband one day, you think it's a good idea tonight if they see us having sex on the couch since they're going to do it anyway? And she looked at me and she said, good point. And she just walked off. Right? Here's the deal.
That's good.
There are certain things that a kid can see and experience when they're young, and it will hurt them. But if they see it and they experience when their brain is developed as an adult, like God intended it to them, in the fullness of God's intention for it, it won't hurt them. It will multiply them. And it's our job to make sure we're exposing kids to what they should and shouldn't be exposed to right now. Kids out there, if you're
amazing.
If you're listening to social media, I'm not talking bad about you, but I am telling you it's dangerous. You need to be careful. Parents out there, be the parent. Nobody said you had to give your kid a smartphone. And if you did give them a smartphone, you can take it back if you want to, right? Look at your kid, know your kid. You may have 4 kids and 3 of them are okay. But you may have one kid who you see their life is impacted from them. That means you may have to take your phone from one kid. Well, Daddy, it's not fair. Life is not fair, okay? God did not create all 4 kids in that house to be alike. So all 4 kids can't handle the same thing.
The problem is when you just scroll up, you don't have the full control about the content, right? So
that's right.
That's the problem.
I call it.
You never know.
It's the algorithm. You have to live above the algorithm. How can you live above the algorithm if the algorithm is feeding you and guiding your life? Well, Morris, I'm not addicted to the algorithm. Sure you are, because your phone knows you better than you know you. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth.
And it's kind of scary because everything's so catered to what you watch. And it is like dumping more and more. If you get something good, it will dump you more good. Mm-hmm. But if you get something bad, that algorithm, it would just
learn so fast.
Right. So absolutely, man, it's so good. So good. Well, I really wanted to, I know we are going into such a great conversation about, the kids and about social media and how you did it. But tell us a little bit, Morris, what is it like to be on a stage? I want to make a transition to go into public speaking. I want to talk about that, not just public speaking, but communication in general. Yep. What is it like for you to be up on a stage? How do you prepare yourself? How do you kind of get in the mental note, get all your notes ready, get that body language that communicates so much? What's that process like?
Well, my process, it kind of starts with this. In Matthew 9, Jesus said that he had compassion for the people because he knew their condition. So before I walk out onto a stage, my job, whether I speak at a prison or one of the top corporations in the world that pays me a lot of money, or whether I speak to kids or whether I preach at Seacoast like last weekend to the kids, my job, as my pastor Chad Hampton told me in Lake Norman a few years back, he said, our job is to know the condition of the people. And when you dial into that and you get really focused on the audience and the customer and you know your audience and you pray that God will allow you to see your audience and really see into them, then what happens there is your preparation changes because you see their hurt, you see their pain, but you also see their joy and you see the fun stuff. And so when I speak, I'm an entertainer, but I'm a motivator, but I'm a preacher, but I'm a coach, but I'm a dad, I'm all of that. And I'm all of that in one when I'm out there and I'm just myself. But I'm highly trained, I'm highly prepared. I'm a part of the National Speakers Association, which is a professional group of speakers that has existed for many, many years, started by a gentleman named Cavett Roberts, who had a global mission in mind, which is that the pie is big enough for all of us. So speakers globally, we come together and we train each other and we share with each other presentation tips, marketing tips, video tips, studio tips like this to challenge each other to be better. Because I believe that when God gives you a platform and a stage, it's not your stage. The stage belongs to the audience. You're simply the butler or the maitre d' or the server serving the table that day. And you should start off with saying, would you like a drink? Would you like an appetizer? What would you like with your meal? How can I serve you today? When you start off with that mindset and the audience knows that you have that perspective, it changes the entire engagement. Yeah. That was good. And he thinking, he like, yeah, see, he like,
But the
right.
challenge is how you can just show the feeling, just how they can realize you are open to serve or whatever,
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When you eat food every day, do you have to teach yourself how to eat your favorite food?
No.
Nope. It comes naturally, right? We've been eating our favorite food and drinks forever, right? Speaking is like anything else. Are you getting the repetition in? Are you getting in the reps? Are you practicing? Are you prepared? See, we don't have to prepare to buy a pair of Jordan tennis shoes or to buy that Fendi purse that some ladies like to buy. What's up, ladies? I know y'all like the purses, right? We don't have to prepare our minds to do those things because we want to do it. We know how to do it. We got the money to do it. We're going to make the time to do it, right? So what about public speaking? Do you want to do it? Are you going to prepare to do it? Are you going to set aside the time to do it and to do it well? Right? We talk about all these
It's
other...
natural, right?
Huh?
That's the point. It's natural.
No, you can make it natural with effort. And the simpler point is we do the things that we want to do. So if you say you want to do this thing, commit the time and the effort to doing it. And before you know it, if you commit enough time and discipline, then it will become natural, right? Nothing is natural at first. Every one of us, we're humans. So what that means is whenever we do something for the first time, our brain, in a place in our limbic system in our brain, which is called the amygdala, it sits at the base of our neck and the center of our brain. The center part of our brain where our limbic system is, many researchers think that was our original brain. It was very small at first, and it's purely emotion and response. And then the neocortex, which is the larger part of our brain, that kind of grew later on in life. And now we have our prefrontal cortex. And this is where the front of our brain, where we think logically, rationally, right? It's just not emotional. You know, it's interesting. I've got all girls in my house, and I learned something a couple of years ago. If the girls are upstairs fighting, and it's a bunch of girls upstairs, I run in. Okay, if it's boys, here's how it goes if it's all boys. Boys are screaming. They're crying. You want to know what's going on? Run in the room and just look at whatever's in their hand. That's what he just beat them with. That's a boy, right? With girls, it's the opposite. You walk in, they have nothing in their hands. What's wrong? If you ask them, why are you crying? She'll say something, because I think she looked at me. Wait a minute, you think she looked at you? Did she look at you or not?
Yeah.
It's all feelings and emotions, right? Right. A lot of the feminine energy comes from emotion. You know, a lot of masculine energy comes from this prefrontal cortex and just where we're just thinking, just do it. That's why guys are always wanting to fix things, right? Well, the truth is we need to be a blend of both, okay? And the reason why I brought up our amygdala is because there is something called an amygdala hijack. You heard that noise just now? Whenever we hear a loud noise, our limbic system is hijacked. And it's like, oh, what was that? Whenever you're walking in a tree branch and you see it on the ground, you think it's a snake and you go, and your flight or flight kicks in, that's an amygdala hijack. It's teaching you to focus on that instantly so that, because you might die, right? Well, the problem is when people speak on a stage or public speaking, they get nervous and your limbic system takes over and your body thinks you're going to die. And you get sweaty and you got to pee.
Kind of funny,
And it's not true. You're not going to die. But think about it. Go back 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, if you were downtown in the public square of your town, standing up on a box, and there was 500 people looking at you, you know what was about to happen? You were about to die. They were probably about to hang you, kill you, something. It's not natural to be in front of a large group of people and everyone looking at you. Let's just think about what it is. Public speaking is you're elevated, you're standing on the stage, and a lot of people are staring at you. And your brain, your limbic system is like, what's going on right now? Am I about to die? And you have to convince yourself that this is not death. I'm not about to die. So how do you do that? You're in the mirror practicing for weeks or months. You have your PowerPoint deck ready to go. You've got the music ready when you're walking to the stage. You've got your talking points memorized so well that you can forget them and still know them by heart. See, the preparation work with your prefrontal cortex is where you plan and you logically put together a good sermon or a good speech.
You need to be ready, right?
You got to be ready. And then what that does is it calms down your amygdala and your limbic system, and it tells it, shut up, go to sleep. We're not going to die. We're about to change lives today. And that's what happens.
Man.
So let's dumb it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned some big words there. And
Amygdala hijack. Everybody knows what the brain is. That's a big word, but everyone knows you got a big head, and in your head, you got a big brain. That's the neocortex. You got a little brain in there. It's the tiny little brain. Big head, little head. Now they with me.
But even dumbing it down a little further.
Let's do it.
On a regular communication.
Prepare.
I think
If
that's
you
the
have
word.
a job interview,
Are you saying prepare even in your marriage?
I'm saying everywhere. There are conversations I have to have with my wife that I'm scared about.
Okay, let's talk about that.
you know
because,
what? No,
because there is communication in
interesting.
marriage.
That's
There is
right.
communication between, employer, employee.
Yeah.
There is communication between, even friends at church. I mean, even hanging out,
Yep.
you can be misunderstood. So guide us. What does that look like in communication?
In all of those situations, it's much different. That's not public speaking. It's
Right.
one-on-one. Watch this. Dave Ramsey has a quote, and it's real simple. To be unclear is to be unkind. So in those situations, you have to be direct. Hey, I need to speak with you about something. It's very important. I might even be wrong about this, but I need to say A, B, C. Okay, now I've said it, A, B, C. And I just need to make sure you know that is what I want to communicate to you. Now, what happens next when that moment hears you, when that person hears you, how they respond? If it's a husband and a wife, the wife may say, "You always say that. You blah blah blah." Now this is marriage stuff, okay? And if that type of communication is off right there, that's what therapy's for. That's what counseling is for.
Right.
But if it's a teacher talking to a kid, you know what our students need more today? Direct conversation, correction, challenging. Right? Adults used to correct us all the time when we were young and challenge us. Now adults are so scared of a kid hurting themselves
Yeah.
or telling their parents, my teacher said this, that. There's a lot of educators who they don't even know how to hold kids accountable anymore, right? So now what we're talking about is not a communication issue, it's a culture issue. So if you're listening to this right now and you're a teacher and you have your own classroom, or maybe you run your own school building, or maybe you have a church, my question is, do you have a culture where you're allowed to have open, honest, and direct dialogue and communication? Because if you don't, then what's going to happen is you're not going to have accountability when there needs to be challenges and corrections to character and behavior. And then that's the type of stuff that'll blow up a church. It'll blow up a marriage. It'll blow up a relationship between a father and his daughter. Why? Here's the quote. You ready? If we can't talk, we can't grow. Doesn't matter what the relationship is. G-Money, if you and I can't talk, we can't grow. If me and my wife can't talk, we can't grow.
That's
and
right.
my mentor taught me that.
That's
if me and
right.
my pastor can't talk, we can't grow. It'll be a surface level relationship and it'll stay right there.
And that's so true because relationships, when they go a long time without talking, without that conversation going, you start to think about things. You start to assume things. You start to, did he really mean that? Did she really said that? Because you're spending a whole lot of time without talking. That's particularly in marriage. I remember that, my wife and I, when we go a long time without having a meaningful conversation, there is a lot of room for assuming things,
misinterpretation,
talking about it.
Because you're off a rhythm. Your rhythm's
Exactly,
not on. You're not-
exactly. That's a great way to
I
put
made
it.
one change last year that's changed my marriage. Last year in 2023, one of my buddies asked me, he said, "How can I pray for you and your wife?" And I said, "Well, hey man," I said, to be transparent, I said, my wife and I, we haven't had the best romantic relationship for 10 years since our daughter was born. And he said, well, we were just talking and he said, well, you want me to pray that we fix that? I said, no, let's not fix that. I said, let's pray that we can fix our connection. Because if we do, then the romance and the spark and everything, we'll want to be around each other more. He said, okay, let's fix the connection. He said, how can we fix the connection? And I said, I know exactly how. I said, I just want to go for walks with my wife. Because my wife is such an amazing person that I knew, because I'm the crazy one of the group. She's the amazing. She's the normal one. So I knew if we could just go for walks, everything would fix itself. So what we started doing last year is we dropped the kids off at school. I'm an entrepreneur. So remember this, it does no good to be an entrepreneur if you're not using the benefits of entrepreneurship.
That's right.
And one of those is times and flexibility. You can build your schedule the way you want to. So we started dropping the kids off at school in the morning, and afterwards, if we don't have a meeting or something we have to go to, we'll go for our walk together. And we might only get a chance to do that maybe 3 times a week. But you know what happens? We talk about everything. And on those walks, I'm not her husband. I'm her friend. And she's talking to me like I'm her girlfriend. She's like, did I tell you that this happened today? And I'm like, girl, I do not want to know all that. I am not your girlfriend. I'm your husband. And she's like, well, I thought we were sharing everything. I'm like, continue, please.
The problem is sometimes you try to communicate something, but the other side just understand differently.
Well, watch this. When Lisa and I are on our walking talks, when we go for walks and we're working out together, we talk about everything. So I call it Switzerland. We're in Switzerland. It's neutral territory. She can say whatever she wants. I won't take it critically. I can say whatever I want. She won't feel judged. I can say some bad things to her, like, girl, you've been doing this. And she can be like, really? I'm sorry. Because we know that on our walking talks, it's Switzerland. That's it. And you know what we changed that? It's changed our relationship. It is 10 times better than it was a year ago because we're just taking that time to walk. And what studies show that when you communicate while you're walking or moving, you communicate differently because your brain starts to fire and synapse. So your brain starts clicking because your body's moving and you don't talk with a frustrated tone. You're more loving, you're more kind. It's like you're breathing better. It's cooler.
Really?
You never want to have a hard conversation sitting across from someone because that's just your body's locked up, you're tense, your brain is already tense because it's a hard conversation. If you have a bad conversation that you need to deliver, go for a walk with that person. Even if you're firing a person, take them for a walk around the company building. Just make sure security follows you, so they don't shoot you or something, But the walk and talk is powerful, man. But what we're talking about here is communication, okay? But what we were talking about a minute ago is organizations, churches, and families.
Correct.
Leaders need to create cultures where communication is open like this, okay? It's not, well, everything should be fair and you should listen to me. No, we shouldn't listen to everybody because some people have crazy things to say.
That's true.
And everyone doesn't deserve a microphone and everyone's not mature enough yet to say whatever they feel. Some people need to grow and get to the point where they can do that. But one thing I want to say to you is this, and I want people listening to understand this tip. Butch Howard, who you know is an elder at our church, he taught me something that he didn't say it this way, but I'm a professional speaker. So after a year or so of him mentoring me, here's what I came up with. And when I was at the White House last year, I had to leave the next day and I had to do a thing in DC where I brought senators and congressmen and Republicans and Democrats together at this event. And I had to be the closing speaker. And my job was to bring a message that brought the whole room together.
Oh boy.
Yeah, oh boy, Democrats and Republicans, right? And here's what I told them. You ready? In the presence of a relationship between two people, anything is possible, including disagreement. But in the absence of a relationship, the first time we disagree, Rob, if you and I don't have a relationship, then the first time we disagree about politics, about gender, about homosexuality, about chicken or beef, anything you name, the first time we disagree, we're probably never going to talk to each other again. We're probably going to not really like each other. Why? Because we didn't have a pre-existing relationship already. That is where our world is. But in the presence of a relationship, anything is possible. Disagreement, troubles, trials, grinding. You can do anything with someone if you have a relationship. So the goal here is not to have great communication tips. The goal is to make sure you're out building relationships with the people that you're supposed to love. Because if you're doing the work to build the relationships, then what will happen is the hard communication and the hard conversation will be easy to have after that.
So I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
Did you get the Republicans and Democrats to agree?
Of course not. Yeah, I think the only person who could do that, he's dead. He's dead already. He's with us. Jesus, if you're listening, and I know you are.
We need some help down here.
Jesus is the only man. That's why I'm glad when they put him on a cross, he rolled that stone back 3 days later. He rose from the grave because what he was saying is, hey, Democrats and Republicans, Sanhedrin, all you crazy political people here in Jerusalem, I am the one. You're looking at him.
That's right.
I am the relationship,
Come on. But I love the point that you said. It's not about communication. A layer deeper, it's about relationship.
Yeah.
So whether you are a business person and you're dealing with your employee, or whether you're a husband and wife, or your speaking engagement, it's not just about how you express yourself or your body language, but It's about the relationship across the table.
It is. But it is also about how you express it. Remember I told Rob earlier.
That's right.
You know, we have a lot of Latin people listening to this, and they have big American dreams. They want to come here and build something. Some people are going to be in Brazil. They're going to be in Venezuela. They're going to be in South Africa, because this podcast is going everywhere. And I want people to know, yes, what you say matters. That's why I told Rob earlier, when you're talking to a person, give them your shoulders, give them full eye contact, and open your mouth. Ready? One of my biggest trips, it's a tip. People think that's weird. When you're talking to someone and you're listening, open your mouth. Watch the difference. Okay, I'm talking to you right now, Rob. Close your mouth. Just keep it closed. Ready? It's closed. I'm talking to Rob. Now I'm going to start telling you a story about my favorite cat. And I want you to open your mouth like you're smiling a little bit. So I had this favorite cat when I was young, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't he look more interested?
Yeah.
He looks like he's interested in what I'm saying.
That's right.
So what I remind
And it's
myself.
a little movement, right?
It's a small movement. So when you're listening to someone, open your mouth and put a slight smile on your face while you're listening to someone. And it is a way to honor that person. And that person will feel like you're more engaged, and it'll make them feel better about themselves. And they'll say, man, I don't know what it is, but I like that Rob guy. I like Rob.
He's always laughing.
He's always laughing.
I learned it.
But what they don't know is Rob is thinking, I don't speak English very well. And I told Rob, square your shoulders up, make eye contact, open your mouth and smile, listen more, and then all of a sudden your English is going to get better because you're a better listener. So I wasn't talking to him about talking. I was talking to Rob about how to listen. Some people don't know how to listen. That's why when you reach for your phone when someone's talking to you, I tell people, I'm going to punch you in your face if you grab your phone when I'm talking to you. They're like, what, Morris, that sounds so aggressive. And I'm like, I'm just playing. No, I'm not, you know? And so I'll get some people who look at their Apple Watch. You know, I'll have a guy who calls me and he says, yo, Morris, can I take you to coffee? I want some success in my life. And I'll say, sure. And I'll meet him. And after the first or second time he looks at his phone, I told myself, this guy isn't serious. He asked me to coffee. He couldn't even have enough sense to leave his phone in his car. You don't have to do that for your friends. But when you got a person who you want to invest in your life, who's a pastor or a mentor or an investor or something, you should show up with a pen and a piece of paper, no watch on, no phone, and you show that person, hey, I'm in this moment with you. And it's honoring to the person. It shows reverence to the person. And then that person is going to want to invest more time into you. That's right. Because they see you're focused.
Morris, it's been such a great episode number 6.
Number 6, baby.
It's been amazing. Man, I feel like so blessed that we had a chance to have you as a guest in our podcast. Thank you so much. But before we say goodbye to the audience and to the people that are watching us, I'm sure that you have followed us. You've been watching. You could not leave the screen because it's just been so much good content. I know you're going to digest that a little bit better later, but I would like to hear your final thoughts. Give me the best of Morris in a nutshell, in a version. But with one twist, though, with one perspective.
Yeah, give me the twist. All right,
the twist is, hey, there is a bunch of Brazilians, Hispanics, immigrants out there that are desperately needing some really good information and tips on how to improve their life, their communication. I know we talked a whole bunch of things, but give me your best version in a nutshell.
If you're listening right now, I want you to know this. There's a lot of problems in our world, and there's a lot of bad things out there, but there's a lot of opportunity out there also. But whoever's listening, I want to give a compelling challenge in the form of encouragement. You are the answer for many of the problems in our world right now. If you're listening, you're the answer. So that one idea you have in your mind, that one girl that you want to ask out because you think that's going to be your wife one day, you're probably right. She's supposed to be your wife. That's why you're attracted to her. You can see your 4 kids. You have that business idea right now because God has put something inside of you that's going to be a technology or a service that's going to change the world. Maybe there's some things, some values or some habits in your life right now that you want to change, but you can't change because your family won't let you change or your friends won't let you change. I'm telling you, whatever desire you have in your heart right now, The reason you have the desire is because you are the answer. And only you can do what God created you to do in the world. So my encouragement to you is, please take yourself serious enough that you actually believe that God sees you and he's put a plan in your life and he wants to use you to be a force in this world. Take yourself serious enough. But also, when you fail and when you mess up, don't take yourself too serious, man. Laugh at yourself a little bit. Have a good time, because that's part of this journey that we're on right now. And I'll tell you something. You heard a lot of great stuff from Rob and G Money and me today, but know this. We're still trying to figure this thing out. So in a way, we're in a broken down car going down the interstate as we're changing the engine and the tires at the same time. A lot of people see us and they'll think that we're successful and we got it all put together. No. I'm not where I used to be. That's for sure. I'm not where I used to be. But guess what? I'm nowhere close to where I'm going. I'm not going to stop. So the question is, are you going to stop? Because I'm not going to stop. G-Money, you going to stop?
Not at all.
Rob, you going to stop?
Not for sure.
Well, listen, we're going to keep doing this together. Y'all going to keep doing this podcast. Y'all going to keep coming to the studio. And when we celebrate episode number 100, we're going to have a party. When we celebrate episode number 500, we're going to have a party. And then before you know it, we're going to be selling out arenas and stages. Why? Because what we're going to do through this Latin community is going to bring so much hope and encouragement around the world.
Yeah. I agree.
That it's not going to be Latin. It's going to be Chinese, African, Dutch, German, Iraq, Iran. We're going to let some Ukrainians up in this bill. You know what I'm saying?
Let's
go. I would even let Joe Biden come to the party. Okay? I'm getting crazy right now.
Why not?
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's if he's alive at the time. I'm saying this is going to be so compelling that it's just going to be a place where no matter who you are, Democrat or Republican, black or white, man, gay, straight, listen, we don't care about what we care is that you believe in community. And this is a community.
Love it.
Love you
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to the channel, The LatinCast on YouTube, at LatinCast on Instagram, we would love for you to be part of this community. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. We would love to grow this community, get the message out. We are so excited for what God is doing and for all the exciting things that God's bringing our way and your way.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, and I will see you next time.
Holla at your boy.